Up next, I'm proud to introduce Jacqueline Metzler of Siemens Healthineers, who will be taking us through our very first speed round of the day. Over to you, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Melody. So our first session here, this is on the supply chain and delivery network in Canada. So as we've already heard this morning, Canada has emerged as a global trailblazer in medical isotope innovation, powered by a world-leading infrastructure and a strong commitment to developing talent and expertise. This session will spotlight pioneering technologies and leading centers shaping the isotope landscape, while also exploring the opportunities and challenges in advancing radiopharmaceuticals. So I'll welcome our first speaker, Hareesh Viswanathan, who is a seasoned supply chain and procurement leader with over a decade of experience, including roles at Dell Technologies, Sonos, and several startups. He currently serves as the principal sourcing category manager at Boston Scientific, overseeing procurement of nuclear materials for cancer treatments. He holds a master's in supply chain management. He brings deep expertise in sourcing strategy, supplier optimization, and innovation in highly regulated industries. So I'll welcome Hareesh to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for a warm welcome. I'm Hareesh Viswanathan, currently working as a Principal Sourcing Category Manager for Boston Scientific, responsible for the strategic sourcing and procurement of nuclear materials and services. So it's a privilege to join you all today at the AtkinsRéalis Leaders Summit, and I'll be presenting about how Canada plays an important role in the medical isotope industry here. So at Boston Scientific, we are deeply committed to bringing in life-saving therapies to patients, and we couldn't do that without our Canadian partners, I would say. So today I'll walk you through how Canada's infrastructure, partnership, and innovation helps us deliver medical isotopes for life-saving cancer treatments and diagnostics globally, and what lies ahead for this essential ecosystem. So as we see, why Canada matters right now is, as we all know, the global demand for medical isotopes has been increasing humongously for both diagnostic and therapeutic in this current scenario. Whether it's technetium for heart and bone scans or lutetium for prostate cancer, the need for timely, safe isotopes is definitely undeniable in today's world. But there is a challenge. Many of the reactors in this current situation are mostly research reactors across the world, and about a handful of CANDU reactors as well in the ecosystem. So the challenge here lies with all those old age research reactors which are nearing its end of life, or I would call it retirement. I would say facilities around the world in Europe, Africa, Australia, are some of the examples of the research reactors that currently are in their end-of-life situation in another 15 to 20 years, maybe down the line. So this is where Canada's role has become indispensable. And Canada is a home to mature nuclear ecosystem with stable CANDU reactor technology, which is untouched. And that's why it makes Canada as a world leader in medical isotopes industry. So it is also the result of how the government and the private sector have collaborated to make this isotope production a national priority, and we are now seeing the results and the commitment on the global stage. So unlike many countries facing the interruptions and bottlenecks, Canada offers continuity in the supply of medical isotopes industry. It's that stability combined with innovation that allows patients across the world to depend on Canada isotopes for every single day on diagnostics and therapeutic treatments. So looking at the global landscape of isotope production, I would say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know the, yeah, there you go. So looking at the global landscape of isotope production, let's take a moment to zoom out and look at the global landscape here. As I mentioned earlier, there are only a handful of countries that are in this technical capacity and regulatory sophistication to produce and export medical isotopes. Name some of them is Belgium, Africa, Australia, and also the US as well. So Canada stands out for multiple reasons. First one, it's its dual production capacity through can-do reactors, meaning isotope production doesn't require interruption of power generation. And the second is its logistical and the regulatory alignment with major global markets, including the US and the European Union, making the cross-border shipments very reliable and seamless in this case. So third one, Canada's proven record during the global disruptions of COVID-19 pandemic also proved how the treatments were given to the patients in a seamless manner, making sure not one patient also has missed the treatment in a critical situation. So at Boston Scientific, we rely on these networks and corridors to move isotopes like yttrium-90 that Boston Scientific makes to treat liver cancer within the world in a matter of days. And this isn't easy. So it involves like synchronized supply chain of all the network partners that I have mentioned earlier as sourcing, global production, the logistics, the regulatory alignment between the strategic partners, and also the cross-border customs and pretty much all the industries, I would say. So, but Canada definitely makes it possible and seamless. Coming to Canada's nuclear ecosystem. So one of Canada's strengths in its integrated nuclear ecosystem is its strong bonding and network with all the partners, as I mentioned earlier. So to break it down, at the heart of this system is the can-do reactor, which is uniquely capable of producing medical isotopes without requiring shutting down of the power system. Because of its usage of deuterium heavy water in place of pressurized water, the refueling is done very seamlessly without interruption of power. So that's definitely a game changer. It means that isotopes are being produced continuously, and these reactors in the can-do technology can run 52 weeks a year as against to the age-old nuclear research reactors that have a significant downtime of more than 30% in some cases as well. So for example, there are the key players in this ecosystem, the Ontario Power Generation, the Triumph, the Canadian Nuclear Laboratories, Health Canada, and the NRC. Each plays a distinct and unique role in facilitating research and development, production, regulation, and export. So this ecosystem fosters strategic collaboration and innovation while maintaining unwavering commitment to safety and compliance by all means. So additionally, I would also like to mention the Canada universities that are committing to research and development, talent development, and clinical and validation studies in the development of the nuclear medicine ecosystem. When you combine these elements, like cutting-edge reactors, strategic government support, and industry collaboration, you get a system that is uniquely positioned to lead the next chapter of the nuclear medicine. So now I would like to highlight how Boston Scientific plays an important role in Canada's ecosystem and also in working in collaboration, how Boston Scientific is delivering life-saving cancer treatments to the patients all around the world suffering from liver cancer. Boston Scientific is a world leader in the production of yttrium-90. It's called TheraSphere. It is one of the important medical isotopes that is used in life-saving cancer treatments, specifically called HCC, hepatocellular carcinoma liver cancer. So the challenge here is Y90 has a very, very short half-life of just 64 hours. So it means that every hour the clock is ticking and every hour is counting critically to treat a patient anywhere in the world. So we extract, process, and then ship these isotopes to hospitals where patients are just awaiting for the treatment so that they'll be making a huge impact and living the next day for sure. So even a delay of a few hours, 12 hours or 10 hours, is going to cost a life or death situation at the end of the day. Here is where Canada's infrastructure plays a significant role in helping Boston Scientific deliver Y90 to the world. So it includes facilities like BWXT that we have partnered with, and soon to be partners, Laurentis, and their ability to reliably produce, coordinate logistics, and also ensure the batch integrity to save lives is very important here. So it's not just making isotopes, it's about delivering them in a timely manner. And that precision and reliability is what makes Canada indispensable in the therapeutic and diagnostic isotope space. So then coming to the next slide, I'd like to talk about the partnership that Boston Scientific has been having with BWXT Medical. Our legacy partnership with the BWXT Medical is definitely a prime example of how a strategic collaboration should be producing real-world results. So at Boston Scientific, we manage the sourcing, procurement, and the forecasting of these yttrium-90 medical isotopes. And BWXT handles the processing and delivery and makes sure the world-class expertise and facilities are utilized in the Ontario facility and then delivered to the patients at the right manner. So together, we have established a secure, validated supply chain that has maintained near perfect reliability even during the most volatile situations like the COVID-19 pandemic, where not even one patient treatment was missed in this case. So this partnership allows for a real-time collaboration across every node, right from how the reactor schedules are given, and then the materials are delivered at BWXT, and then they are calibrated and processed in a timely manner, using the right logistics partner to deliver it in a timely manner. So everything has been orchestrated right from start to finish, and that's how Boston Scientific is able to execute with our Canadian partners here. So this legacy partnership is definitely more than just isotopes. It's about a mission alignment, helping patients fight liver cancer. To scale and replicate this, especially with the new reactor partners, is also definitely coming on board, and we are looking forward for it. So the next slide, I would like to talk about our upcoming partnership with Laurentis Energy Partners, which is a subsidiary of Ontario Power Generation. And it is one of Canada's most advanced CANDU facilities, and we are more than excited to partner with LEP here. They have a very interesting capacity of TDS, Target Delivery System, which means that there is continuous production of isotopes without disrupting the power, and you don't have to interrupt the power generation when the refueling is done. So it means the isotope production is being run the entire year, and that gives us an opportunity for scaling up the production to meet the global isotope demand in the upcoming years. So talking about Canada's global isotope impact is very important here. So every day, Canada produces isotopes to support hospitals and treatments in more than 30 countries. So here I'd like to stress about how Y90 is making an impact. So we are treating more than 60,000 patients globally right now through our advanced delivering systems and processing facilities and the research reactor facilities and the upcoming collaboration with Laurentis. So our work at Boston Scientific, through the collaboration with our partners like BWXT and the soon-to-be LEP, is definitely helping us to make a huge impact in the world of global isotopes to treat our patients in this case. But this isn't just about the quantity or the number of patients it's hitting. So it's about the quality and reliability, and Canadian isotopes are delivered within hours of processing, which is definitely a significant requirement in this isotope industry. As I said, we are not just meeting the demand, and we are doing it sustainability, right from how we source, how we package, and how we deliver in a timely manner. So every industry has its own challenges and opportunities, as we all know. So same with supply chain, how supply chain has come to highlight. Before COVID-19, I would say supply chain almost was never existing, and not many people, even within the company, know the existence of a team or department called supply chain. So one way, thanks to COVID, people have turned their heads towards supply chain. And when it comes to supply chain, it has its own list of challenges and opportunities as well. So the first, coming to the challenges in the nuclear reactor space, is definitely the space and the capacity constraint that we are having. As I said, there are a few handful of CANDU reactors in the world, combined with research reactors, which are age-old and coming to end of life. And in this case, we are fighting for reactor capacity and space, which has a very, very limited capacity and space. And then challenges coming with regulations and waste treatment, and the transportation bottlenecks in the cross-border customs and so on. So when it comes to opportunities, talking about the current buzzword AI is definitely making an impact in every industry. So I personally would like to leverage AI in this case to optimize the space capacity and do like mass optimization, process improvement projects in order to create more space and capacity at the reactors, and also use AI to predict forecast model in this case, so that the reactors are seeing the real-time numbers from the patients across the world. So this makes it very, very precise, and there is huge opportunity for us to enhance this industry further. I know we are running out of time. I'll just move real quick here. So Canada's path forward is very, very clear. So with continuous investment in the CANDU-based reactors, I would like to take this as an encouragement also implement CANDU type reactors in other countries like the US to encourage upcoming of more reactors due to the challenges that I just mentioned earlier in this case. So that enables us to create more isotopes to meet the global demands and treat more patients in the future. Last but not the least, I would like to thank Canada for saving lives. And it is not only the involvement of science and engineering, but it takes a lot more than that for sure. It takes a lot of time, effort, collaboration, and compassion. In my role at Boston Scientific, I have seen how these networks collaborate together, and that's how we've been saving lives in this current scenario, and I'm looking forward to continue the service in the future to treat more patients in this world. So that's about it. I thank you so much for taking the opportunity, for giving me the opportunity to talk about how Canada is playing an instrumental role in the global isotope supply network. Welcome to any questions if we have time. Thank you.
Thank you, Hareesh. Yeah, we're a bit short on time, so please find time at the lunch break if you have questions for him. Next, I'd like to introduce Sabrina Ullah, who will be going through the journey of the Canadian supply chain from mining to market. Sabrina is the Director of Program Interface between Nuclear and Engineering Services at AtkinsRéalis, focusing on strategic initiatives, including the company's isotopes portfolio. She's got over 20 years at the company, having delivered complex projects ranging from expansion and upgrade to integration of high-tech medical equipment in hospital construction. She also serves as the co-president of the Canadian chapter of the Parenteral Drug Association. So please join me in welcoming Sabrina to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. So in 2023, the CNIC launched its Isotopes for Hope campaign with the aim of expanding Canadian leadership in isotope development and use, and to also, as we heard this morning, double our production capacity by 2030. So that brings the Canadian isotope supply chain to the forefront of the conversation. But what exactly is the medical isotope life cycle? This session aims to explore the infrastructure and logistics that make up that supply chain and the delivery of radiopharmaceuticals. It's a supply chain that requires coordinated speed and care, where our medical isotope is the active pharmaceutical ingredient, or API. Our API is subject to immense supply, quality, and logistics constraints, and she also happens to be radioactive. Somewhat of a radioactive Cinderella, we can say, because she's decaying by the hour. So we are rushing to get her from one end of the life cycle to the other end, which is the patient. It is a complex supply chain, and as we all know, the stakes are very high when there's product loss because there's a human being at the other end. So it's important that we get it right and that we improve it as we expand production capacity. Now, this supply chain truly is a multi-sector effort. From mine to medicine, all players need to work seamlessly to get the product from one end to the other. So what are the important considerations then with the infrastructure as we talk about expanding production capacity? At AtkinsRéalis, we design and deliver the infrastructure across much of this life cycle. Our minerals and metals team deliver the process and metallurgy facilities required for target production. Our nuclear team designs and delivers not only the radioactive handling infrastructure, but we are also the original equipment manufacturer of CANDU power reactors, which are used for online target irradiation and harvesting, and are a major source of medical isotopes. Our Isotech group processes isotopes. Thorium-229 specifically is extracted from uranium-233 for the US DOE, which goes on to produce actinium-225. Our life science team leads our group in the design and delivery of radiopharmaceutical manufacturing facilities. And finally, our healthcare group leads the effort to design and deliver nuclear medicine space in point-of-care facilities, while our operations and maintenance group then goes on to take care of those facilities for decades to come. So it's with that experience across this life cycle that I'll speak to you for about the next 10 minutes about the challenges that we at AtkinsRéalis see with this supply chain, but also the solutions that we see. And I'll also be speaking from my own experience, having spent the majority of my career with the life science group at AtkinsRéalis, delivering pharmaceutical manufacturing facilities, nuclear medicine suites and hospitals, and now with the nuclear group. All right, so first stop on this supply chain is target production. Now, of course, yes, there's mining the ore, but the challenge really comes in with the processing and the metallurgy part, because often, depending on the ore type, it requires a highly specialized process and metallurgy facility. And these are often put up in remote locations, as we all know. After that, much of the material needs to go on to enrichment, and this only happens in a handful of specialized locations around the world. All right, so the raw target is produced. We are passing that baton down onto the next phase, which is irradiation. This is where we are producing the radioisotope. This can happen in a cyclotron, a linear accelerator, or a nuclear reactor. Now, we know the goal that we have to double production of medical isotopes by 2030, but we also heard a bit today about the diversity of medical isotopes that are coming to the forefront as well, right? There's a variety that are currently going through phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials, and alpha emitters are also taking up more space in phase 1 clinical trials as well right now. So it's no wonder that we have been hearing from researchers and pharma companies alike the need to increase supply, variety of supply, quantity, quality, and reliability of medical isotope delivery. Now, just a word about CANDU reactors. Utilities around the world, especially here at home in Canada, are using CANDU reactors to produce certain types of medical isotopes reliably. And CANDU Monarch, the next generation CANDU reactor, will provide the opportunity to produce more isotopes, and this into the next century. Oops, sorry. So now that the target has been irradiated, this is really where the clock starts ticking, right? We are now concerned about passing this radioactive baton down through the rest of the supply chain. This is also at the point where we start talking about transportation logistics. It becomes a real factor because we've also got to be concerned with proper shielding, licensing, and training carriers as we are passing that radioactive baton down that supply chain. This is also the point where we start talking about, do we go with a distributed model for this infrastructure, right, spreading it around, or vertically integrating certain phases? Next stop is the isotope processing. We're passing the target on, and this is where we are talking about decanning and purifying the isotope to separate it from other elements and impurities and to concentrate the isotope. This work must be performed in hot cells. Radiochem labs are often co-located. I just talked about vertical integration. Radiochem labs are often co-located with irradiation facilities just upstream or the radiopharma facility just downstream. And this helps because it minimizes the potential for decay losses due to transportation time, but it also takes advantage of the radiation safety infrastructure and licensing that is at those facilities as well. All right, now here we are at radiopharma production. We are passing the radioisotope on to transform it into a radioactive drug, a tracer for diagnostics, a therapeutic for treatment, and this also includes the production of generators. The infrastructure we're talking about here are radiopharma labs, pilot plants to produce the batches for clinical trials, and the full-blown manufacturing facilities. Here, our API, the radionuclide, will undergo the same type of processing as any kind of aseptic pharmaceutical. It'll undergo purification, formulation, filtration, sterilization. But the added step here, when it comes to targeted radiotherapies and theranostics, is that we are coupling or binding the radionuclide to a biological targeting molecule. So this is the additional step here. Now, just to mention two thoughts on de-risking this phase. As a radiopharma manufacturer, the idea of de-risking your supply, so having a backup supplier, because let's be real, we live in Canada, snowstorms are a real thing, and all sorts of things that can happen. So having a backup supplier in those incidents. And I'd also like to just spend a couple of minutes now about talking about de-risking and optimizing radiopharmaceutical plant design and processes. Okay, so as a radiopharma manufacturer, you could either own as a brand your own manufacturing facility, or you can outsource it to a CDMO, a contract development manufacturing organization. Either one is fine, but what's important is that the facility enables a predictable and tightly controlled operation that moves with speed and efficiency, and in lockstep with upstream and downstream parts of the supply chain. What's super important here is that the facility is designed and licensed to meet both nuclear and pharmaceutical CGMP regulatory requirements, CGMP being current good manufacturing practices. And meeting both types of regulations, nuclear and pharma, is not a trivial task. It requires an integrated team with expertise in both pharma and nuclear requirements to incorporate and optimize plant design early on. So for example, the pharma GMP members of the team, they will be responsible for delivering the facility. But as they focus on items on the leftmost column, that's what they're really specialized in, they will ensure compliance to the regulations set forth on the right side of that wheel, your Health Canada, FDA, EMA type of regulations. And also important to note that in the pharma world, your facility not only has to be compliant to the regulations of the jurisdiction where you are producing, but also the jurisdiction to where you are exporting the drug to. So your pharma design team will be aware of all of those regulations for both here and to where you're exporting, and they will also be familiar with the harmonization protocols that exist between a number of those countries. The nuclear members of your design team will input to the plant design on the types of items listed in the right-hand column, and they will ensure that your plant is compliant with the regulations set forth by the bodies on the left side of that wheel. Now, why is it important to have an integrated team of dual sectors? Is because sometimes the regulations between pharma and nuclear can actually oppose each other. They can squarely oppose each other. So it's important that your team works together to deliver an integrated solution that satisfies both regulatory bodies. In the column over here, I've just listed a few places where they need to work together to come up with design solutions. And I'll expand on one example. When it comes to HVAC, heating, ventilation, and clean room, airflows. In aseptic operations, that's sterile manufacturing and pharmaceuticals, the rule is, most often, protect the product. So you are pressurizing your production room and airflow is going outwards. But in the nuclear world, the rule is protect the person. So airflow goes inwards. Okay, so now what do you do when you have a aseptic radiopharma production suite? You see, this is where you need an integrated team. Your engineers will work together to configure the clean rooms, the airlocks, the shielded isolators, and they will design a scheme of air pressurization in your production space to ensure both sterility and containment. Just quickly, 2 other examples. For sterility, in regular pharma, to ensure testing for viable and non-viable particles, this is often done manually. People are going around sampling things. And your product is only sent out, your drug product is only released from the facility once product testing is done and everything checks out and is okay. That's not necessarily the case in radiopharma. Because of radioactivity, your engineering team might need to design in and automate some of the particle testing that goes on. So this needs to be thought of as you're designing the facility. And the product will not wait for testing before it's released. We do post-release testing often in radiopharma. So this means that there really needs to be a high degree of certainty around commissioning and validation of your facility and processes for post-release testing to fly as a mechanism. Another example, very quickly, is waste management. In pharma, it's neutralize the product, get it out, send it out, get rid of the waste. Radiopharma, maybe not. Your design team might need to work in decay and storage mechanisms to let the product expire in-house, and then it's sent out. So your team, your design team, and your automation team will work on a different type of configuration for the warehouse management system. So all this to say, it's very important to seek out a multi-sector design and delivery team early on here. Last stop on the medical isotope life cycle, we're at patient delivery, we're at the healthcare facility. So this is where we are getting the product. This is the radiopharmaceutical product, we're getting it to the hospital, or the radioisotope is produced in the hospital cyclotron. Your design team for this facility will be specialized in the nuclear handling spaces, so handling areas, radiopharmacy, patient care spaces, storage spaces for radioactive material, and the scanning rooms. And they will adhere to both CSA and CNSA regulations for some of the items mentioned below. All right, so as you can see, the journey is complex. It has challenges, but with emerging technologies through the life cycle, and these are emerging technologies both on the drug side, right, with binders, targets, radionuclides, and on the infrastructure side, innovation there, with investment by stakeholders, by implementing expert partnerships and coordination, and by following de-risking approaches, solutions emerge. And we arrive at the most important part of the journey, which is delivery to the patient. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina, for that. That's the radioactive Cinderella. I really like that. I think I may use that in future. So our next speaker is Dr. Jonathan Boekhoud. He's a nuclear medicine physician and medical lead for diagnostic imaging at the Thunder Bay Regional Health Sciences Centre. He's also an assistant professor at Northern Ontario School of Medicine. He trained in nuclear medicine at the University of Western Ontario and in PET imaging at the Peter MacCallum in Australia. He holds leadership roles with Ontario Health, the Ontario Medical Association, and the Canadian Association of Nuclear Medicine. His interests include health equity, system sustainability, and physician financial planning. And he'll be speaking on deployment of radiotheranostics in regional health centers. Please welcome Dr. Boekhoud.
All right. I'm John Boekhoud. I'm here, as you can see, to talk to you about deploying this stuff in the real world, out in the communities. I will apologize. This is going to go over time. If people are getting hungry, you can sneak out and grab your lunch. That's fine. I won't take offense. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. This is going to be my experiences working in the North, and I need you to understand sort of the context of where I come from. I grew up in Chatham, which is 3 hours that way down the 401 in southwestern Ontario. I went to medical school and did my nuclear medicine training in London. And then I took a job in Thunder Bay because it was the only job available. So I am not a lifelong Northerner. I am a Southern Ontario boy who moved up there to Northern Ontario. And things are different up there. And I didn't appreciate that until I moved there. So I have looked at life from both sides now, as Joni would say. So, regional theranostics, why should we care? Well, the touchy-feely reason is, if this goes, health equity. We're all Canadians, we all deserve access to the same health care. That's not actually the case. There's all sorts of data showing that people in rural areas have worse health care than people in urban areas in terms of the access they have, the resources they can access, and the health outcomes. And if you look at remote areas, they're even worse than the rural areas. But this is more of a business crowd, so I'll give you another reason why you should care, because it's good for your business. You need to go where your customers are. So half of Canadians live below that black line, the other half live above. So 50% of your target market is that way. And you need to be able to access them if you want to sell your radiotheranostics. Our goal needs to be, whichever side you're on, care close to home. And to paraphrase the old Turkish proverb, sometimes the radioactive mountain actually does have to go to Muhammad, because they will not come down to Toronto, some of these people, to get their therapy. So let's talk about the challenges of doing stuff in a regional center. So you need to have a place with a nuclear medicine department. In northwestern Ontario, that is Thunder Bay. That is the only full-service department in the Northwest. The nearest departments are Winnipeg, Sault Ste. Marie, and Timmins, and they're about 8 hours away. So it's us or nothing. And you need to have the appropriate facilities. You need therapy rooms and a PET CT scanner. In Thunder Bay, we have that. In other regional centers, they may not. And putting in that infrastructure is very expensive. And if you're a small hospital or in a socioeconomically deprived area, coming up with the investment to put in those facilities can be challenging. The other thing you need is staff. And to do theranostics, you need a bunch of people. You need nursing support, you need administrative support, radiopharmacists and physicists and things, depending on what exactly is happening. We have none of that in Thunder Bay. What we have is our nuclear medicine technologists, and they're fantastic, but they are a limited resource. So if my technologists are giving out Pluvicto, they are not doing bone scans. They are not doing cardiac scans. So when you add something new, like a theranostics program, you are introducing delays to other services. There's no free lunch out there. Everything is a trade-off. The other challenge, of course, we have in northwestern Ontario is geography. This is France overlaid on Ontario to give you an idea of the relative size. Northwestern Ontario, my region, my catchment area, is just slightly smaller than all of France. And that's really helpful when you're speaking to Europeans, because they don't get Canadian geography. But if I tell them, well, I live in a forest the size of France on a lake the size of Ireland, they go, oh, okay, so I see why you can't just sort of drive down the road and get your therapy at another place. Now, the geography introduces some challenges. First is radioisotope delivery. It's a 15-hour drive from Toronto to Thunder Bay. That's in good conditions, which we don't always have. These pictures are from one storm along the Trans-Canada Highway, single storm. Your radioactive package may very well end up in the ditch. Now, I lied, the bottom right corner, that's not actually the storm. That's a picture of our staff parking lot in mid-April. So, welcome to the North. And the other thing is the infrastructure. This is the Nipigon Bridge, just east of Thunder Bay. This carries the Trans-Canada Highway across the Nipigon River. This is the only road connection between Western Canada and Eastern Canada. There is literally a single road. And the Nipigon Bridge is not unique. There are, in fact, 8 different places along the Trans-Canada Highway in northwestern Ontario where it is the only road connecting the western and eastern parts of our country. So a lot of single points of failure there. Might as well fly stuff up, because the driving is going to be difficult. We have about a dozen flights a day from Thunder Bay to Toronto and back on various carriers, but unfortunately, there's only one that is sort of approved to carry most radioactive materials. It's the carrier we all love to hate in Canada, and they have some issues. Did you know, if there is a pet in the car, like an animal, a pet, in the cargo compartment, they will refuse to carry your radioactive package. If the pilot is afraid of radiation, they can refuse to carry a radioactive package, and they have. if Air Canada Cargo forgets to put your radioactive package on the plane, it's not going to arrive. And they've done that so many times. And then, of course, there's the delays and cancellations that we're all used to because, this is a winter country. And this is not just about Air Canada, of course. Did you know that cargo doors on airplanes can actually freeze? So the plane lands in Thunder Bay, they can't get the door open, the packages don't get off, so the plane leaves and goes on to its next port of call. And your overnight delivery from Toronto arrives 3 days later by truck from Winnipeg. That can be an issue if things are, decaying, for example. And then our local courier, they try mightily, but every once in a while, the radiation safety people have noticed, this side up marking there that is not, very much not up. This is how I walked in to see our generator box delivered one Monday morning a year or so ago. And we also have to get the patients to the department, not just the isotopes. This is, I asked Google AI, show me an elderly male patient from Northern Ontario. This is what it gave me. This is AI George. We're going to use AI George as our example patient here. George doesn't live in Thunder Bay. He lives in the region, as we call it. And depending on where he is in the region, he may be able to drive to Thunder Bay. He may have limited road access. In some places, he may only have an ice road in the winter. Ice road truckers, that's a real thing up there. And in some places, there may be no road access at all. And George, unfortunately, lives in, not unfortunately, but he lives in Casablanca, which does not have any road access. So George, if he wants his treatment for his Pluvicto, he's flying down to Thunder Bay. And he's not going on Air Canada, though. He's not going Porter. He's going on Perimeter or Bearskin or Wasaya. You can let the Bear take him there. But these are small airlines, and they don't have the most reliable schedules and routes. So there's actually no direct flight from Casablanca to Thunder Bay. He's connecting in Sioux Lookout. That's 4.5 hours total travel time on a propeller plane to get down to Thunder Bay. And depending on how many cycles of therapy he's having, he's making that trip multiple times, right? And this stuff isn't cheap either. So 1 month out, I checked this yesterday, a one-way flight from Casablanca to Thunder Bay is $1,070. That's one way. On the same day, Air Canada will fly you from Toronto to Vancouver for $189. And then the other challenge we have is our patients. And they're wonderful people, but they can be challenging. We have very poor primary care access in the north. So in the city of Thunder Bay, 40% of people don't have access to a family doctor. In the region, it's worse. If you're on a reserve, you may have a nursing station with a doctor who flies in for a day every month or two. We also have challenges with socioeconomic status. It's a poor region, particularly outside of the city. There are limited economic opportunities for people, so they don't have a lot of money for traveling, for buying drugs, for these things that the healthcare system doesn't necessarily cover. And their health literacy is also not as good because the educational opportunities are limited. There are language barriers up there, although that's no different than anywhere else. And then there's what I'm going to call cultural beliefs, particularly with our Indigenous people. And there's a lot to unpack in this. As a white man, it's not my job not my place really to speak about some of these issues, but I can say from my experience that the effects of colonialism, of residential schools, of intergenerational trauma, it's real. Like, it has affected these people very deeply. And I'll give you one example that was shared with me by our Indigenous health lead in Thunder Bay. She said, in the region, the Thunder Bay Hospital is known as the death house because that's where you go to die. You get sick on the reserve, they medevac you to Thunder Bay, and you come back in a coffin or an urn. That's where you go to die. So just sit with that for a second. Like, you're trying to convince this group of people who are already suspicious of government institutions for good reason. You want them to come to your hospital to have a treatment at the death house? That's a hard sell. And so our Indigenous liaisons, our social workers work really hard in some cases to actually convince these people to come in and get the treatment because they're very reluctant. And the result of all of this is the patients in our region, they have worse underlying health to begin with, and they present with more advanced disease than they would in Southern Ontario. And then the other challenge we have is the healthcare personnel. So I'm a simple country nuclear medicine doctor. I'm not an expert in theranostics. I don't think people should get worse treatment or less expertise because of where they live. But the reality is I'm going to have to deliver some of these treatments, and I'm going to need some support, and I'm going to need some training to do that in a competent manner. And I also don't have the support staff. Again, I don't have a radiopharmacist, I don't have a physicist, I don't have these people to support my program. And the other thing, of course, for me and my staff is time. We are very busy up there because we are the only department. You want me to do theranostics? Ain't nobody got time for that, all right? But I will say there are some opportunities and solutions here. The best thing we have in the North is our people. We did some corporate benchmarking a few years ago. Thunder Bay's nuclear medicine department was #1 in efficiency in the province compared to both academic and community departments. I would love to take credit for that. I can't. It's because my staff work hard. I have worked in 12 different departments across 4 provinces, 2 countries. No one works as hard as the staff in Thunder Bay. We also have great patients. People are, if nothing else, they are resilient in the North. You have some guy who got up at 3 in the morning and drove 5 hours for his PET scan in Thunder Bay just to find out it's been canceled, and we couldn't tell him because he was in a dead zone, so his cell phone wouldn't work when he was driving in. And instead of losing his mind, he says, well, should I hang around town for a day or 2 to get it done, or should I just drive home? Because that's what they're used to dealing with, and they put up with it. People shouldn't have to tolerate that sort of stuff, but they do in the North because they're tough. And then the other thing we have is our community, our administration, our volunteers. The community is really engaged in our hospital, better than anywhere I've ever seen. In a place like Thunder Bay, there's one hospital. It is not the hospital, it is their hospital. People are engaged, they care, they participate, they fundraise. And so we are a better place because of the support that our community gives us. But what we need is resources. We need recognition from the decision makers, from the Ministry of Health and various people that things are different in remote areas than they are in Southern Ontario. It will take more time, it will take more resources to get the same outcomes in our area compared to down here. And so we need that support. And we also need access to networks of care. I am not a theranostics expert, but if I'm connected with colleagues in Southern Ontario who've got a physicist, who've got a radiopharmacist, who've got expertise, I can deliver basic theranostic services if I have people I can call on when an issue comes up. So we need to establish those networks of care so that the smaller places can provide these services to the patients who need it. So just in summary, we've talked about regional delivery of theranostics, why we need it, what are the challenges, how do we solve them. This is Google AI's solution. You just fly a box of theranostics in and drop it off on the runway. That's how you deliver theranostics, according to Google. Well, and I'll just give you one last thing. I told you at the beginning this was my story, and it is. This is my experiences in Northern Ontario. But I'm going to introduce you to Josh and Susie, and they work at the Royal Darwin Hospital in Australia. And for those who don't know, Darwin is way up at the very, very top there, next to Indonesia. And a year or so ago, I was at a conference in Christchurch, New Zealand, and Susie gave a great presentation on the challenges of providing high-quality, culturally sensitive care in Northern Territory of Australia. And I said to her afterwards, if you took out Larrakia people and put in Anishinaabe, I could have given the exact same presentation about working in the North. So this is not my story. This is our story. These are challenges that we face not just in Northern Ontario or in Canada, but in remote communities all over the world. Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Boekhoud. That was very insightful. We just have one more speaker for this session. This is going to be Dr. Hua Yang, who is presenting on Canadian cyclotron excellence and advances in actinium production. Dr. Yang is a research scientist at Triumph's Life Sciences Division and an adjunct professor in chemistry at both Simon Fraser University and University of British Columbia. She earned her PhD in chemistry at McGill University, completed postdoctoral research at UBC and Triumph, where she later advanced to lead their R&D program. Her research focuses on radiolanthanides and actinides for cancer imaging and therapy, and on development of novel radiopharmaceuticals. Please welcome Dr. Yang.
Thank you, everyone. I've tried not to hold 400 people hungry. I'll be talking about Triumph's effort of producing actinium-225 from cyclotron. Conflict interest, I share the inventorship for the actinium separation process we use at TRIUMPH, and also I share the patent for crown chelator, which I'll mention briefly at the end. So for those of you who are not familiar with the TRIUMPH, we're a research institution located at the southern part of UBC campus, and we are a cyclotron facility. We host 5 cyclotrons ranging from 13 MeV to the world's largest 520 MeV cyclotron. And the 520 MeV cyclotron is actually the one we use currently to produce actinium-225. You see the picture on the, You see the picture on the right, and along the yellow, behind those yellow concrete blocks is actually the world's largest cyclotron. And this is actually the beamline we produce actinium-225. So why actinium-225? I don't think I need to convince this audience. And because it works, it shows remarkable clinical results. And I personally think the potency of actinium-225 is very difficult to match from any other isotopes. I also wanted to point out, those pictures like this really tells a very compelling and powerful story. Not only that, those imaging, this is generated by gallium-68. Those imagings help physicians to screen the patient, to select the patients that will benefit from those very taxing treatments. Those imaging tracers can also be used for dosimetry and also for patient monitoring. So I'll come back to the imaging part later. So there are quite a few different ways of producing actinium-225. I'll highlight 3 here. First is the most clean way, easy way, is that from the decay of thorium-229, which going through alpha decay, and you have radium-225, which will be the generator for actinium-225. It's a very clean process. The problem is it's very difficult to get a hold of thorium-229. This is from very aged uranium-233. I think in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, CNL is the only place have thorium-229. Another way, which we use right now, is using thorium-232 spallation. So this process, the targets are much easier to find. You can buy kilograms of thorium metal. But the problem with spallation reaction is it's a much dirty process, low yielding. You make almost everything, and you try to fish out actinium-225. Another way, cleaner, is using the P2N reaction from radium-226. And the problem for that is it's very difficult to handle that target. We have a separate project just studying the TRIUMPH on that. So for the thorium spallation, and we start from the target, and we'll put a thorium metal between 2 Inconel foil, and we make those target cassette. And the target station is the end of the 520 MeV cyclotron, right before the beam dump. The energy is about 480 when reaching there. And we have this target station. You can actually put 12 targets simultaneously and being irradiated. And after that, those targets are lifted out of the target station and transferred to the labs for processing. So that's the problem. You have a hot soup, and this one contains about 10 grams of thorium and almost everything on the periodic table. So all the black and the gray ones we can find in that hot soup. And you're trying to fish out about 100 nanograms of actinium-225 from 10 grams of thorium. And this is not a trivial task. So over the years, we have developed a relatively simple process. And the first step is the key step is to precipitate thorium and salt with hydrogen peroxide. And this is a very unusual reagent to use, but the benefit for this is it can selective precipitate thorium without precipitating actinium or radium, which is what you want. And also another benefit, I'll come back later, is this precipitation is easy to dissolve, so we can fish out other useful isotopes, medical isotopes from this precipitation. Then after that, you reduce your 10-gram problem to hundreds of milligrams of problem. And then at that stage, you can use your conventional all kinds of columns and to purify your compound. So the directly produced actinium contains about 0.1, activity-wise, about 0.1 to 0.3% actinium-227. This one, we currently use it for bismuth-213 generator, or using the actinium-227 as a generator for thorium-227 and radium-223. There is also, we can also isolate a radium-225 generator from this hot soup, and that way produce actinium-225 as a pure actinium-225. So how much do we produce? We can produce about, from a single target, and 10 days after EOB, we produce about 1.3 gigabecquerel actinium-225 with 227. Radium-225, we can produce about 300 megabecquerel per target. We have been using this process routinely. So last year at Triumph Life Sciences, we repeated this one 6 times. The yield and the reaction is relatively stable. To improve the actinium yield, we can increase the target material, we can increase irradiation dose, we can shorten the cool-down time, but the most difficult one is actually to improve the shielding, which will require the infrastructure upgrade. So the best scenario when you produce isotope is you build the facility to what you want to use it for. However, in the old facility like what we have to retrofit the new process in the facility and do what we have. So this posing its own challenges. BWXT has a branch that's located on Triumph campus, and they have been using the targets we irradiated to produce actinium-225 at a much higher level, and this has been used in clinical settings. So I just want to highlight, why this is important for Triumph Life Sciences to produce actinium-225. I think so far we have been only used for research use, but enables a lot of things. Without isotope, all the fun stuff you want to do will not happen. So this is the one project that we early on developed. We developed this new chelator called CRON. It features room temperature high efficiency labeling actinium-225, and we made actinium chromatate, and we did biodistribution and animal therapy study. This is in collaboration with BC Cancer and the UBC Imaging Suite. Speaking of imaging, at Triumph, we also produce a set of imaging isotopes. I want to highlight terbium-155. This one has a 5-day half-life, almost ideal energy-wise for SPECT imaging. This allows you to image in the animals at much longer time points, which you can use for dosimetry calculation. So challenge and opportunities. Scale up, I talked about infrastructure update is probably the most difficult one. Regulatory approval and GMP production is a hurdle for a facility like what we have. And also, I think training is a big part. Having the expertise to do this job sometimes is challenging. Routine supply. So this kind of investment projects always come with a very high cost. So for production sites, sometimes we're uncertain what would the market look like, in 5-10 years down the road. As a scientist, we often think about what's beyond actinium-225 because we want to stay ahead of the tide. So other radionuclides we can also produce from the thorium-232 spallation. Earlier, I mentioned that it's a dirty process, but the benefit of this dirty process, you can fish out a lot of other very useful radionuclides, such as lead-212, thorium-227, radium-223, bismuth-213, uranium-230 can also be produced. And this will enable us to do new chelation, new chemistry development, and studying new targeting vectors. And with that, I will thank all the people who worked very hard on this project. We studied this about 8 years before, and without this amazing team and a lot of clever engineers and chemists, and we would not be able to do what we have right now. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Yang. So thank you to all of our speakers for a very thought-provoking session. We've heard how Canada's contributions in the isotope landscape span the entire landscape, from securing the critical materials to managing complex procurements, establishing resilient supply chains, and expanding access to these treatments via this cutting-edge research as well. Together, I think these perspectives underscore how our collaborative approach in Canada across industries can ensure that our work, ideas, and partnerships can continue to drive the momentum and keep Canada at the forefront of global impact in theranostics. So thank you.